So I made one crucial fundraising mistake that likely cost our church plant between one to $200,000. And the crazy thing is, I didn't even realize it until it was just about too late. So if you're getting ready to fundraise for your church plant, then I want to show you exactly what I did wrong and then give you a simple formula so that you don't have to make the same mistake. Back in 2020, I was in a fundraising meeting with a very successful business owner who completely ripped my plan to start a new church on Long Island to shreds. I mean, he looked at me and my wife like we were absolutely crazy, and he wisely questioned why on earth we would try to start a church in a place where people don't go to church. And after his lecture about why our strategy was absurd, my wife and I left that meeting laughing about how we were going to be forever a joke to that guy. But to my surprise, he called me just a few hours later to tell me that he was actually going to give $500 a month for the next 3 years to help us start the church. And that right there, even though the story ended pretty well, those 3 years, that's where I made my big mistake. But before I explain what exactly went wrong, if you're fundraising or if you're about to start, then I've got to share something with you that I think will be a big help. I put together a free guide with my top 5 tips that helped us raise over $345,000 in startup funds alone. And this was during COVID, by the way. So I want to give you those tips for free. I want you to just click the link in the description, or you can visit churchplantjourney.com/fundraise to grab it. It's absolutely free. And honestly, I think it'll save you a lot of headaches. Okay, so back to my mistake. When we were fundraising, we followed advice from other planters in the Midwest and in the South who told us to ask people for a 3-year commitment. But the problem was we weren't planting in the Midwest and we weren't planting in the South. We were planting in the Northeast. Specifically, we were planting on Long Island. And if you know anything about the Northeast, you know it is a completely different context. Long Island is one of the most expensive places to live in America and one of the most unchurched. And I didn't factor that into my asks. I just went with the standard 3-year commitment everyone else was using. And that was my mistake. I should have asked for 6 years. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm extremely grateful for everyone who committed to 3 years, and many kept giving after their commitment ended. But by year 3, we were nowhere near financially self-sustaining. I mean, we're in year 5 now, and we're still not there yet. And the reason why is because we're located in a place with naturally high bills and very few tithers. And this is especially true when you plant a church focused on reaching unchurched people, which everyone should do, by the way. But when that's the case, you can't just expect people who are brand new to going to church and following Jesus to just start throwing money in the offering box right away. I mean, while meeting Jesus can absolutely transform somebody's life immediately, in my experience, following Jesus with money is usually one of the last places people surrender. So you're going to need time to disciple your church before you'll see meaningful results in the tithes and offerings, which means you need to be strategic about how many years you ask your supporters to commit to. So this caused me to do some digging. I looked at some church planting resources, and here's what I found. While most denominations recommend 3 to 5 year funding commitments, research shows that only like 60% of church plants are self-sufficient financially by year 4. So the actual average is 6 years before a church plant reaches financial self-sustainability. And in challenging contexts like really expensive cities or unchurched areas or even poorer communities, it can take even longer. And here's the problem. As far as I can tell, nobody has created like a simple framework to help you figure out how many years you need based on your context. So I made one. All right. It's not perfect, but it's better than just shooting for the 3 years because that's what everybody else does and then hoping for the best. So here's what I've developed. Here's the framework. Start with 3 years. That's your base. That's the absolute minimum that you need to ask for. You need to ask for people to commit for 3 years. Then what you're going to do is you're going to add a year based on your context. Specifically, you're going to want to look for the 3 things. There's 3 things that might be unique to your situation that would cause you to add a year for each one of those things if they're true for you. So for instance, number 1 is this. The first thing you want to look for is the cost of living in your region, right? The national average cost of living index is 100. So if your area is 120 or higher, then you're going to want to add a year to what you ask people to give. So instead of asking them to commit to 3 years, you're going to want to ask them to commit to 4 years. And the way that you figure out like what your cost of living is in your city or your county is you can go to a website called bestplaces.net, and then you just type in your town name and you'll figure it out. Or the easy route is just ask AI, what's the cost of living in my, city, my county, whatever. So for context, Long Island is around 147. New York City is around 170, which means it's 70% higher than the average cost of living. Long Island's 47% higher than the average cost of living. While cities like Nashville, they're around 100 to 105, and places like Oklahoma City, they're in the 80s. So they're 20% lower than the national average cost of living. So if you're planting in a major city on either coast, you're almost certainly going to need to add a year when you ask people to commit to giving. Instead of asking for 3 years, you're going to want to ask for 4 years if you have a cost of living that's 120 or higher. Now, the second thing that you want to look out for when you're making your asks is you're going to want to look out for church attendance rate in your area. See, the national church attendance rate is around 30 to 35%, but this can vary wildly by region. The South and the Midwest have higher rates, as you would probably expect. They're about 40 to 50% range, while the Northeast is around 20 to 25%, and the Pacific Northeast is actually even lower. It's about 15 to 20%. So the easiest way I know how to figure out what the rate is for your area is to just type it into AI and ask, what is the church attendance rate in my city? But if you prefer to go a more old school route, you can search databases like the Pew Research Center, or what's the other one? It's the Association of Religion Data Archives. Just search for your city there, and I'm sure you'll find something. Now, if your area is below 30%, like a 30% or less church attendance rate, then you're going to want to add another year, because it's likely that the people that you're going to reach are going to be brand new to church. So if your cost of living is 120 or higher, and then the average church rate is 30% or lower, that means you're not asking for 3-year commitments. You're going to ask for 5-year commitment, because you're adding a year for cost of living and you're adding a year for church attendance rate. Now, the third thing that you want to look out for that may add a year to what you're asking is your target audience. And this is where you really need to be brutally honest with yourself about who you're actually trying to reach. Like, if your strategy is built around truly reaching people who have never been to church or haven't been to church in years, not just Christians who are moving into your area or people switching churches, then you're going to want to add a year. And again, I think if you're watching this, I hope if you're watching this, you are all about reaching unchurched people. But that means it's going to be a little more challenging for you, because unchurched people, they need time to build trust. They need time to understand what it means to truly follow Jesus, and then learn what Jesus-like generosity looks like. And that journey just takes a little longer for unchurched people than for somebody who's already been discipled in giving. So you're going to want to add a year if you truly are reaching unchurched people, or you're planning to reach unchurched people. So let me show you how this works with like real examples. Let's say you want to plant a church in Nashville. The cost of living is 103. It's a pretty churched area. There's an established Christian community there. So for 3 years, that's probably enough to get you going. Like, you're going to want to ask for a 3-year commitment because your cost of living is under 120. Your church, the average church attendance is higher than 30%. And you have an established Christian community there. So that probably means you're going to get some people there who have already been discipled in giving. So 3 years is probably good if you're in Nashville. If you want to plant a church on Long Island, that's a whole different story. The cost of living is about 150%. The unchurched rate is super high. I think it's crazy high. So at least 7 out of 10 people do not go to church here. And then there's limited mature believers. So here's what you do. Your base rate's 3. Right, you're always going to minimum that you want to ask for is 3 years, and then you're going to add 1 for the cost of living, and then you're going to add another 1 for the low church attendance rate, and then you're going to add another 1 for your target audience. So if you were planting a church on Long Island, you want to ask for at least a 6-year commitment. And if you want an example in the middle, you can look at like a region like, let's say, the Dallas suburbs. The cost of living there's 105, so you're good. There is a pretty strong Christian community there, yet there's a mix of churched and unchurched. So you might want to add a year for the unchurched people you're trying to reach. So instead of asking for a 3-year commitment, if you were in the Dallas suburbs, you might want to ask for a 4-year commitment. So there's a simple framework that you can use. Again, it's not perfect, but it just gives you a little bit more than just the standard, just ask for 3 years and hope for the best. So here's what I want to encourage you to do to avoid making the same mistake I did. Use this formula. Use this formula before you start making any asks, or before you start making any more asks. because this will help you have a more realistic view of what you need to raise. And then if you do this, drop it in the comments. Let me know how many years you'll need for where you're planting. And if you've already done all your fundraising and you're brave enough to share, could you tell me what your biggest fundraising fail was? Like, tell us, because I want to learn from you. And again, if you want more proven fundraising tips, strategies that have helped me raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, then I want you to download my free fundraising guide. You can click the link in the description or visit churchplantjourney.com/fundraise. Now, lastly, no matter where you are on your church plant journey, no matter how you're feeling right now, no matter what obstacles you might be facing, I want you to know you've got this. You've got this. I absolutely believe in you. You want to know why? Because you've got the Holy Spirit of God in you, which means there's nothing that God can't do through you. So don't give up. Keep on trusting God and know I'm here cheering you on all along the way. And I can't wait to see you again in another episode real soon.